Hi. My name is Emily, and I was just 19 when everything in my life turned upside down. I lived with my mom and stepdad, Mark. After my real dad passed away, my mom remarried him when I was 13. At first, he seemed like a decent man. He provided for us, smiled a lot, and treated my mom well. Or so I thought. But when I turned 18, things started to change. Mark's eyes lingered too long. His compliments became uncomfortable. He'd say things like, "You're becoming a beautiful young woman, just like your mom." I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just imagining it. But I wasn't. One night, my mom went out of town to visit her sister. I stayed home because I had college assignments to complete. Mark made dinner, acting overly nice. I thanked him and went to my room, trying to focus. Around midnight, I heard a knock on my door. "Emily, can I come in?" "I just want to talk," he said. I hesitated but eventually said, "Okay." He walked in and sat on my bed. Then he put his hand on my knee. "You're all grown up now," he said softly. I froze. "Mark. I don't think this is right," I said nervously. He leaned in closer. "You don't need to be scared. I've always cared about you." I stood up and backed away. "Please, just go slowly. I mean, think about what you're doing." He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "You're not a kid anymore, Emily." I ran out of the room and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking. I messaged my friend Lily and told her everything. She came over in 10 minutes flat and picked me up. That night, I didn't go back. The next day, I told my mom. At first, she didn't believe me. But when Mark denied everything too aggressively, she started to wonder. A week later, she found inappropriate texts Mark had sent me months ago, messages I had deleted, but they were still on the cloud. She kicked him out. Divorced him. And apologized to me in tears. It took me months to recover, to trust again. But I learned something important. Family isn't about blood or titles. It's about how people treat you. And sometimes, even those closest to you, can become monsters in disguise. After my mom kicked Mark out, things didn't get better overnight. In fact, the days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever lived through. I could feel the shame hanging over the house like a thick fog. My mom blamed herself. She cried every night, not just because she was heartbroken, but because she had let a man like that into our lives. "I was supposed to protect you," she said, over and over again. I hugged her, even though I was the one hurting too. We were both victims in different ways. Mark didn't go quietly. He kept calling, both of us. He sent long texts to my mom begging for forgiveness, claiming I misunderstood him. He even sent me a message saying, "You ruined everything. I treated you like my own daughter." That message was the final nail in the coffin. We reported him to the police. My mom handed over the saved texts, the messages from the cloud backup. I gave my full statement. But because nothing physical had happened, the police said there wasn't enough to press charges, just a restraining order. That's when I realized the system doesn't always protect victims, especially when the abuser is careful. Even though he was legally forced to stay away from us, I started noticing things. Once, I saw a black SUV parked across the street. It sped away the moment I stepped outside. Another time, I thought I saw him at my college campus, just watching from a distance. I couldn't prove it, but I knew it was him. I became paranoid. I stopped going out after dark. I changed my routines, dropped a few classes, and started seeing a therapist. For the first few sessions, I just sat there in silence. But eventually, I spoke. "I feel dirty," I told her. "You're not," she replied firmly. "You're brave. You spoke up. You protected yourself." I hadn't thought of it that way before. Meanwhile, My mom began attending support groups for women who had been in toxic or abusive relationships. She met other women who'd been blindsided by men who wore masks of charm. It helped her heal. Months passed. Slowly, the fear began to fade. I changed my phone number. We moved to a smaller apartment in another city. Fresh start. But the scars, they don't go away that easily. One day, a year later, I received a friend request on a new social media account. The name was fake, but the profile picture was an old family photo, me, my mom, and him. My hands trembled. I didn't block the account. Instead, I sent it to the police. They reopened the case. This time, with evidence of stalking and harassment. Mark was finally arrested. It felt like justice was being served, even if it came late. Now, I'm in my final year of college, studying psychology. I want to help others like me, people who trusted the wrong person, but found the strength to speak out. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that silence only protects the abuser. Speaking up. That saves lives. The day Mark was arrested, I didn't celebrate. I sat in my room, staring at the wall for hours. There was no cheering, no fist in the air, no smile. Just silence. Because justice isn't a movie ending. It's a process, a slow, exhausting one. But that night, I slept without checking the locks 5 times. That was a victory. The court hearings weren't easy. I had to sit just feet away from the man who had shattered the meaning of family for me. He didn't look at me. Coward. He pled not guilty, of course. Claimed I was attention-seeking. That I had mental issues. Typical manipulation. But the messages spoke for themselves. The stalking, the fake accounts, the threats, it all built a case that couldn't be denied. He got sentenced to 3 years. Not nearly enough. But it was something. And now, he's registered, his name forever attached to what he truly is. After the trial, I took a break from everything. From school. From friends. Even from my mom. I needed time to rediscover who I was before everything broke. I traveled. Alone. I went to the mountains. I sat by lakes. I journaled. I screamed into the wind. And somewhere in all that, I found pieces of myself I thought I'd lost. Then one evening, while watching the sunset, I wrote something in my journal that changed everything. He took my safety. He will not take my voice. And from that day on, I started speaking up. I joined survivor communities. I gave talks at local colleges about recognizing early signs of grooming and emotional manipulation. My story was painful, but it was powerful. And if even one girl hears it and finds the courage to escape before it's too late, then everything I went through will mean something more. Today, I'm not just a survivor. I'm a fighter. And to anyone listening who's ever felt scared, trapped, or silenced by someone who should have protected them, please hear this. It was never your fault. And you are not alone. Speak up. Break the silence. Save yourself. Because sometimes, the most dangerous monsters don't live under your bed. They sit across the dinner table. Closing scene. It's been 3 years since Mark went to prison. Last week, I got a letter. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a short note. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. No name. No signature. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight they put on you. I folded the letter, placed it in a box with other pieces of my past, and locked it away, not because I'm afraid, but because I've moved on. My mom is doing better now too. She volunteers at a women's shelter. We talk more than we ever did before. There's trust between us again, a bond rebuilt not just with words, but with healing. As for me, I started a blog where I share stories, my own and others. I receive messages every day from girls who've lived through the same nightmare. Some still stuck in it. Some just starting to speak. And some, finally free. Their courage reminds me why I shared my story in the first place. To the world, he was my stepdad. To me, he was a warning. But I became a voice. And that voice isn't going quiet, ever. If this story resonated with you, share it. Someone out there might need it more than you know. Subscribe for more real-life stories and deep truths behind closed doors. You are stronger than your silence.